Welcome to the deep dive. We're the show that tries to, cut through all that noise, especially in fields like cybersecurity, where there's just so much information coming at you constantly.
It's overwhelming sometimes.
Totally. And it's hard to know what's really critical. So, our mission here is simple: deliver deep, genuinely actionable insights, help you connect the dots. And today, we're doing a really targeted exploration. We're looking at some of the concepts across all 8 domains of the CISSP certification that seem to, well, consistently trip people up.
Yeah, the sticky points.
Exactly. And this isn't just about passing an exam, though. Hopefully it helps with that, too. It's more about really getting these core security principles, the ones that actually apply day to day, in the real world.
Right.
We've pulled this stuff from, well, a whole stack of authoritative sources, ISC materials, expert blogs, industry guides, the works.
And that's key. Because if you've been working in cybersecurity for, say, a few years, you've definitely run into these concepts. You've heard the terms. But what we want to do today is really unpack the nuances, the subtle bits that people often misunderstand. We're aiming for the why behind the what's.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully spark a few aha moments for you, clarify those distinctions that are just so crucial for effective security management and actually applying this stuff properly.
Refining your internal compass. I like that.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in. Domain 1, security and risk management. When people first get into security, I think there's this common idea, this assumption maybe, that the goal is, well, eliminate all the risk.
Right.
Can you actually do that? Is zero risk even the right target?
That's probably the fundamental misconception. And honestly, it can be a dangerous one.
How so?
Because risk can never be completely eliminated. It's just not possible. There's always something left over. We call it residual risk.
Okay.
Even the most buttoned-up system has potential vulnerabilities because threats change, people make mistakes, the environment evolves. The real goal, the practical one, is to manage risk effectively.
Manage it, not erase it.
Exactly. It's a cycle. Identify it, assess it, then figure out how to treat it. You might mitigate it with the controls, maybe transfer it like with insurance, avoid it altogether, or sometimes you just have to accept it.
Accept some level of risk.
Yeah, if the cost to fix it outweighs the potential impact. The aha moment isn't just that residual risk exists. It's understanding that security is this ongoing process, this dance. It's about smart management, not chasing some impossible zero.
That idea of managing risk leads right into another big one in this domain, doesn't it? The whole compliance versus security thing.
Oh, absolutely.
People often think, hey, we passed our audit, we're compliant with GDPR or HIPAA or whatever, so we're secure. Are they the same thing?
Not even close. There's a huge difference. Compliance is, well, it's a baseline. It's a snapshot in time saying you meet a specific set of rules or regulations. It's basically a checklist.
Ticking the boxes.
Right. But true security, that's continuous. It's dynamic. It's risk-based. It goes way beyond just ticking boxes. You can absolutely be compliant and still get breached. Easily, in fact.
Because compliance doesn't cover everything.
Exactly. It doesn't account for new threats or maybe the unique risks specific to your business. It's like passing your driving test doesn't mean you'll never have an accident.
Good analogy. Okay, and while we're on management and rules, governance versus management, these two terms seem to get blurry for a lot of folks. How do we draw a clear line?
Yeah, classic confusion point, but it's really important. Think of governance as like the strategy layer. The steering committee. It's about setting the direction, the policies, the authority.
Okay.
Governance makes sure security is doing the right things, that it's aligned with the business goals. It determines, who gets to make decisions and how those decisions are made.
Got it. Strategy. And management.
Management is the implementation. It's the doing things right. Taking those policies and directions from governance and actually putting the controls in place, running the operations.
So like the board sets a data classification policy.
That's governance.
And the IT security team configures the tools to enforce it.
That's management. Exactly. Policy owners govern, policy implementers manage.
Okay, that clarifies it. Now, this domain seems particularly tricky on, say, exams because of these conceptual points. What's the mindset someone needs?
This is critical. You absolutely have to adopt a managerial perspective. Forget being the hands-on techie for these questions.
Think like a manager, not an engineer.
Precisely. You're making strategic choices, and you have to pay really close attention to those keywords. Best, most, first, not. They're crucial.
Give me an example.
Okay, say there's a new risk identified. The question asks for the first step. The answer is almost never install a firewall.
Ah.
The first step from a managerial view is usually something strategic: conduct a risk assessment, review the relevant policy, then decide on controls. People often jump to the technical fix, but the CISSP perspective prioritizes that top-level policy-driven decision-making first.
That's a really key takeaway. Okay, let's pivot. Domain 2, asset security. Another classic point of confusion, data owner versus data custodian. Who's actually responsible for the data?
Foundational stuff here. The data owner is usually someone senior in the business, maybe a department head. They're the ones who understand the data's value, its sensitivity. They define the rules for its protection and use. They set the policy.
So, the business side.
Typically, yes. The data custodian, on the other hand, that's usually IT or the security team. They're responsible for the day-to-day handling. They implement the owner's rules.
Like doing the backups.
Exactly. Backups, patching, configuring the access controls, all according to the rules set by the data owner.
So the marketing VP owns the customer list. IT custodies it, making sure it's backed up and secured as required.
Clear. And sticking with data, what about deleting it? People hit delete, empty the recycle bin. Is that data really gone? Especially sensitive stuff.
That's a big no, a really dangerous assumption. CISSP talks a lot about data remnants.
Remnants, like remnants.
Exactly. Data leaves traces. Just deleting a file in your OS usually just removes the pointer, the directory entry, the actual bits and bytes. They often stick around on the disk.
Wow. So for anything sensitive, you need proper sanitization. There are different levels. Clearing is overwriting the data, often multiple times. Purging is more intense, making it unrecoverable even with lab techniques. And then there's destruction, physically destroying the media.
Like degaussing or shredding.
Precisely. So remember, deleted is absolutely not gone from a security standpoint.
So how do these concepts, classification, disposal, remnants, show up in, say, practice or maybe on the exam?
They often get tangled together. You might need to know not just the classification level, like confidential, but also the specific disposal method required for that level.
Oh.
And privacy often gets mixed in. Protecting personally identifiable information, PII, requires specific handling, maybe anonymization. That's distinct from technical security. But real-world scenarios, and definitely exam questions, will force you to think about both together. How do you secure and protect privacy during handling and disposal?
Makes sense. Okay. Domain 3, security architecture and engineering. Zero trust. Huge buzzword. Is it just a product you buy, plug it in, and you're magically secure? Seems like that's how it's marketed sometimes.
Yeah, if only. No, zero trust is definitely not a single product. That's a big misconception. It's really a fundamental shift in security architecture strategy.
A strategy, not a tool.
Right. The old way was trust but verify inside the perimeter.
Yeah.
Zero trust says never trust, always verify. Every user, every device, every application connection has to be continuously verified based on identity and context. Least privilege is key.
So it's ongoing.
Totally ongoing. It's strategy, policy, integrating different technologies. It's a journey, not a destination you reach by buying one box. And ironically, implementing it well means you really have to trust your identity systems and policy engines.
Interesting point. Okay, building on that architectural thinking, fault tolerance versus resiliency. They sound similar. What's the actual difference?
Close cousins, but different scope. Fault tolerance is about having redundancy duplicate components. Think mirrored disks, dual power supplies. If one part fails, the system keeps running without interruption.
Continuous operation.
Exactly. Resiliency is broader. It's the system's overall ability to recover from any kind of failure or disruption. Could be a component failure, a cyber attack, a power outage.
Okay, so fault tolerance helps achieve resiliency.
Precisely. Think of a twin-engine plane. The two engines provide fault tolerance. If one fails, the plane can still fly. That fault tolerance makes the plane resilient to an engine failure. Resiliency is the goal. Fault tolerance is one technique to get there.
Got it. So in this domain, when we're talking secure design, should we be memorizing specific firewalls or encryption algorithms, or is it something else?
Definitely something else. It's all about the foundational secure design principles. Things like least privilege, fail-safe defaults, defense in depth. Understanding those is way more important than memorizing product names.
So principles over products.
Absolutely. A common mistake is choosing, say, the fastest encryption algorithm without checking if it actually meets the security needs for your threat model, or forgetting about fail-safe versus fail-open.
Right, like a security door failing locked versus failing unlocked.
Exactly. You want it to fail securely, fail-safe, usually denying access. And knowing the basic concepts behind security models like Bella Padula for confidentiality or BIBA for integrity, understanding the why behind those rules is key.
All right, moving into the network. Domain 4, communication and network security. The absolute classic confusion. IDS versus IPS. Help us keep them straight.
Okay, the easiest way to think about it. An IDS, intrusion detection system, is like a burglar alarm. It sits off to the side, watches the traffic, and if it sees something bad, it alerts you. It detects.
It's passive. Detective control.
Exactly. An IPS, intrusion prevention system, is like a security guard at the gate. It gets in line, directly in the traffic path. If it sees something bad, it can actively block it or stop it.
It prevents.
Preventive control.
Right. IDS detects and reports. IPS detects and acts.
Simple enough when you put it that way.
Oh.
What about network address translation? People sometimes talk about it like it's a security feature.
Yeah.
That's another really common misunderstanding. NAT's main job is address conservation, letting many internal devices share one public IP.
Right.
Now, it does have the side effect of hiding internal IP addresses, which offers a tiny bit of obscurity, but it is not a security control like a firewall.
Right.
It doesn't inspect traffic deeply. It doesn't block malicious stuff based on rules.
So it's not a substitute for a firewall.
Definitely not. It operates differently from firewalls, proxies, packet filters. Relying on NAT for security is, well, it's not a good idea. It's like hiding behind a curtain instead of locking the door.
Okay. Good to clarify. And wireless security. Lots of potential pitfalls there, especially the protocols. What are the big ones?
Number one, absolutely critical. WEP is dead. It's completely insecure. Don't ever use it, period.
Okay. Use WPA2 or WPA3 instead.
Yes. WPA2 or ideally WPA3 using AES encryption. That's the standard. Beyond that, precision matters. SSL is deprecated. You should be using TLS.
Right.
And for IPsec, know the difference between transport mode, which secures communication end-to-end between two hosts, and tunnel mode, which encrypts the whole packet, typically used for site-to-site VPNs. Context is everything in questions about these.
Got it. Precision matters. Okay. Domain 5, identity and access management, IAM. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. What's the most common mistake people make here?
The biggest one is thinking any two authentication methods make it MFA. That's not right. True MFA requires two or more different factor types.
Factor types.
Yes. The types are generally something you know, password, PIN, something you have, token, phone app, OTP, and something you are, fingerprint, face scan.
Biometrics.
Right. So a password plus an OTP from your phone, that's a MFA no plus have. But a password plus a security question. Both are something you know. That's just multi-step, not multi-factor.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, what about single sign-on SSO versus federated identity? They sound related.
They are, but they operate at different scales. SSO lets you log in once and access multiple applications within the same organization, like your internal company portal giving access to various internal tools.
One login for your company stuff.
Exactly. Federated identity management, FIM, extends that idea across different organizations that have a trust relationship.
Ah, like logging into a third-party website using your Google account.
Perfect example. Or using your work credentials to access a partner portal or cloud service like Salesforce. SSO is internal convenience. FIM is cross-organization trust.
Makes sense. Now, the AAA framework, identification, authentication, authorization, and that last A, accountability, where's the usual confusion there?
The first three, identification, claiming who you are, authentication, proving it, authorization, what you're allowed to do, are usually pretty clear. It's accountability that sometimes trips people up.
What does it really mean?
It's not just about accounting like finance. In AAA, accountability means you can trace actions back to a specific user. It's about logging and auditing, ensuring there's a record non-repudiation of who did what when. It's crucial for tracking changes, incident response, legal purposes, making sure actions are auditable.
So the logs and audit trails.
Absolutely. That's the core of accountability.
And quickly, any common oversights with managing user sessions securely?
Yeah, sometimes the basics get missed. Things like having sensible token expiration times, forcing reauthentication for really sensitive actions, and always using TLS to encrypt the session traffic.
Prevent hijacking?
Right, session hijacking, replay attacks, and the session tokens themselves. They need to be random, unpredictable, and protected. Basic stuff, but critical and sometimes overlooked.
Good reminders. Okay, domain 6, security assessment and testing. Vulnerability scanning versus penetration testing. People use these interchangeably sometimes. Are they the same?
Definitely not, though they're both important. A vulnerability scan is usually automated. Think of it like a broad, quick checkup. It uses tools to find known weaknesses by comparing your systems against a big database of vulnerabilities.
Automated, broad, finds known stuff.
Right. A penetration test is usually more manual, more targeted. It's like hiring someone to actively try to break in. They don't just find vulnerabilities, they try to exploit them to see how far they can get.
Okay, so scanning finds potential holes. Pen testing tries to go through them.
Exactly. Pen testing is deeper, more thorough within its scope, but scans give you broader, more frequent coverage. You really need both.
And what about black box versus white box testing? What's the difference there?
It's all about how much inside information the tester has beforehand. Black box means they have zero internal knowledge, no code, no diagrams. They test like an outsider would.
Simulating an external attacker.
Right. White box is the opposite. The tester gets full access. Source code, architecture diagrams, everything lets them do a really deep dive. And there's gray box in the middle with partial knowledge.
Is white box always better then, since they know more?
Not necessarily. More knowledge allows for deeper inspection of specifics, yes. But black box can sometimes find issues that rely on assumptions or perspectives an insider might miss. It more closely mimics a real external attack. Different approaches find different things.
I often hear people say, oh, we had a pen test last year, we're good. Is that enough? One test.
Oh, absolutely not. That's a really dangerous mindset. Threats change constantly.
Yeah.
CISSP hammers on continuous assessment.
Continuous.
Yeah. Frequent scans, regular pen tests, code reviews, audits. It's not a one-and-done thing. The cycle is test, fix the findings, then retest to make sure the fix worked, and report those findings in terms of business risk, not just a list of technical issues.
And how does compliance fit into assessment? If a scan finds something but we're technically compliant.
That's a common scenario in questions, too. Remember, compliance isn't security. Just because you meet a regulation doesn't mean the risk is gone. The answer usually involves risk analysis.
Analyzing the actual risk.
Right. What's the real impact? What's the likelihood? Are there compensating controls? Even if you're compliant, you still need to analyze and address the underlying risk from a business perspective. Don't just stop at the compliance checkbox.
Great point. Domain 7, security operations. Backups. Everyone knows backups are important. But is having backups the same as having a full disaster recovery plan?
No, definitely not. And this is a critical distinction. Backup is just copying data so you can restore it later. It's essential, but it's only one piece.
Okay.
Disaster recovery, DR, is the whole plan, the strategy, procedures, infrastructure to restore full operations after a major disruption. It might involve alternate sites, failover systems, communication plans. It's about getting the business back up and running, not just getting files back.
So DR includes restoring the systems and environment too.
Exactly. You need a place and a process to restore those backups too, and then test and validate everything. Having backups without a DR plan might still leave you down for a long time.
Okay. And the cousin of DR is BCP, business continuity planning. How are they different?
Again, scope. BCP is broader. It's about keeping the critical business processes running, even if IT is down. Think alternate workspaces, manual workarounds, communication strategies. It's about business survival.
Keeping the business functioning.
Right. The DRP, Disaster Recovery Plan, is usually a part of the BCP. It focuses specifically on the IT side, recovering the systems, data, and networks needed to support those business processes. So BCP keeps the business alive. DRP recovers the IT that helps it live.
Got it. When an incident does happen and you're dealing with potential evidence for forensics, what's the absolute #1 rule?
Preserve the evidence, secure the scene. That means isolate the affected systems, maybe literally take them off, take photos, document everything. And most importantly, do not touch or change anything on the potential evidence itself.
Why is that so critical?
Because contamination ruins evidence. Once it's altered, its value for investigation or potentially in court is massively diminished, maybe even destroyed. You need a clear chain of custody, a meticulous log of who handled what, when, why to maintain its integrity.
Don't touch, document everything.
That's the mantra.
Okay, last thing in this domain, RPO and RTO. Recovery point objective, recovery time objective. Often confused. Let's clarify.
Super important metrics for DR planning. RPO, recovery point objective, is about data loss tolerance. It asks, how much data can we afford to lose? If your RPO is 1 hour, your backups need to be at most 1 hour old.
Point in time for data loss.
Exactly. RTO, recovery time objective, is about downtime tolerance. It asks, how quickly do we need this system back online? If your RTO is 4 hours, that system must be operational within 4 hours of the disaster.
Time allowed for recovery.
Right. RPO, acceptable data loss point.
Yeah.
RTO, acceptable downtime. They drive your whole DR strategy and budget.
Perfect. Last domain, domain 8, software development security. Big myth here.
Yeah.
We have firewalls and network security, so our apps are protected. True.
Oh, fundamentally untrue. That's a huge fallacy. Gary McGraw, a real pioneer in this field, famously said something like, firewalls don't even begin to scratch the real problem of insecure software.
Because attacks can bypass them.
Absolutely. If your web app has a SQL injection flaw, an attacker can often waltz right past your expensive firewall and steal data. The core principle here is you have to build security in from the start. Secure coding, threat modeling during design, code reviews. You can't just bolt security on afterwards to protect inherently flawed code.
So relying on the perimeter is not enough. What about relying on tools? All these fancy automated scanners, are they the answer?
They help. They're essential, really.
Yeah.
Static analysis, access tests, dynamic analysis, DSAT. They find bugs, but they are not a silver bullet.
The fool with a tool problem.
Exactly McGraw's phrase. Tools have limits, they miss things, they have false positives. You need to integrate them into a broader software security initiative, SSI. That means developer training, manual code reviews, threat modeling, skilled people using tools smartly within a solid process. Tools enable, they don't replace thinking.
Okay, so where's the best place, the most efficient time to actually find and fix these security bugs?
Early. As early as humanly possible. This is probably the most critical economic point in software security.
Why early?
Because the cost explodes later. A bug found in the design phase maybe costs $1, metaphorically, to fix. Same bug found in coding, $10. Found in testing, $100. Found after deployment, thousands, maybe millions, factoring in breach costs, reputation, everything.
Oh, wow.
So CISSP pushes hard for security in every SDLC phase. Requirements, design, coding, testing. Not just a pen test at the very end. Find them early, fix them cheap.
What about cryptography? Is encrypting everything the solution?
Nope. Another non-silver bullet. Devs sometimes think encrypt it solves the problem. But crypto is just a tool. It won't fix bad logic.
Like SQL injection.
Right. Or authentication bypasses. Using crypto correctly is hard enough, but even perfect crypto doesn't fix a fundamental design flaw or bad input validation. You need secure design and secure coding and appropriate crypto, all working together.
Okay. Finally, the OWASP Top 10. Everyone talks about it.
Yeah.
Is knowing that list enough?
It's incredibly important, essential baseline knowledge. But is it enough? No. It's not exhaustive. McGraw also warned against limiting yourself to just 10 bug types, calling it ridiculous.
So think beyond the top 10.
Yes. Consider business logic flaws, where the app works as coded, but allows something insecure from a business process perspective. Think about how attackers chain multiple smaller flaws together. The real goal isn't just ticking off the top 10. It's finding and fixing any significant flaw that creates a risk for the business.
Wow. Okay, that really was a deep dive through all 8 domains, unpacking those common misconceptions. It definitely sharpens your focus. It moves beyond just theory, right? It gives you these practical insights, a better framework for tackling the actual cybersecurity challenges you face every day.
Absolutely. And I think what this whole discussion highlights is that cybersecurity isn't about finding some magic bullet or just following rigid rules.
Right.
It's about continuous critical thinking. It's about adapting to threats that are always changing and constantly refining how we understand these fundamental principles.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Reflecting on all this, what's one concept, one idea that you maybe thought you had down, but now you're seeing it in a slightly different, maybe clearer light?
Yeah. Give that some thought. How might these clarified ideas change how you approach your next project, or even just how you study or think about security day to day?
Definitely something to mull over. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It was a great discussion.